I think one of the biggest problems with 40k right now is the factions getting split apart. The fact that 1,000 Suns have got their own. The fact that Blood Angels and Black Templars and all this kind of stuff. I think that there's too many factions. There's too many factions, and I truly believe that some of these smaller factions need to be consolidated back together. They did this in 7th edition. In 7th edition, there used to be 2 Admech codexes. You had to buy your Admech codex and you had to buy your Skitarii codex. And there were 2 separate factions that could like ally together, but they were still two separate factions you had to buy. Crazy. Even with the distinctiveness that is like where Death Guard are now, World Eaters are now. People like say, "Oh, we want Emperor's Children to have their own codex." Nah, man, you want to go the opposite direction. Truthfully, I think what you probably want to do is basically add all. You want to have all of Chaos back in one big book. All of Chaos back in one big book, and you want to have all the Marines back in one big book. Even those, there might be some controversy here because Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Black Suns, they've all had their own separate codex, but I think bring it all back together, really slim this shit down. Really slim this shit down, but the issue you might have...
Victory is assured.
The issue some people might say you have is... it would oversimplify things and it would take a lot of flavor away from certain factions. I don't think that's the way you do it. I think you bring everything together into one tome so everything's in one place, but there's nothing wrong with you having what is essentially the Blood Angel supplement in the Marine Codex. Like you're just consolidating. You're not removing shit, you're just consolidating. So you still make it absolutely possible for all the Death Guard players to run their army and to basically almost not feel the change. And you do the same for all the other factions as well. I think I think that's quite important. I think the other way you do it, there is another way, and you almost go completely the opposite direction. You give every single faction full-blown codex. So the big problem that we have at the moment is you have Blood Angels who can then dip into... So some factions isn't a problem for, right? So if we look at Death Guard, for example, Death Guard aren't a problem. They're a very powerful faction, but they're not an overpowered faction. Okay? Now, why did Death Guard kind of fit into this niche? I personally feel it's because Death Guard are really well fleshed out. They've got all these unique demon engines. They've got all these unique Terminator units. They've got a mixture of like cultists and poxwalkers. They've got all the different infantry options they need. Death Guard's a really well fleshed out faction. And then you kind of look over at like 1,000 Suns. And they're just nowhere, they're not on the same level. They've got one kind of Terminator unit. They've got one kind of power armor unit. You could say they've got cultist crew. But and you could say they've got Zangors. But I feel like cultists in 1,000 Suns, I don't know, they're okay. Cultists are very generic in general, but Zangors definitely don't do the same thing as Poxwalkers. Zangors are just kind of shit. Okay? Like that's the problem, whereas Poxwalkers have a very good use because they're 20 fucking just meat bodies. Zangors don't have the same thing. Zangors are just an AOS kit that happens to be able to be used in 40k. So because you haven't got all of this variety, it means that you haven't got. It means that 1,000 Suns they haven't got anywhere to pivot to. So what you need to do with this, so that's an example of like a fleshed out faction that is good, and a not fleshed out faction which is struggling. You've then got the other effect, okay, which is you've then got the other effect, which is you have factions which are basically a supplement, which are dipping into another book, and they're completely fucking it for that other book. So a great example of this is Space Marines. Vanguard veterans in a basic Space Marine army, not Vanguard veterans, sorry, Assault Intercessors. Assault Intercessors in a basic, that's my fucking firstborn brain. You know, I see Assault Marines, Vanguard veterans, and I forget about Assault Intercessors. But anyway, I forget the name of Assault Intercessors, what I mean. So Assault Intercessors in a basic Marine army are nothing special to write home about. Like, they're okay. They're fine. But no one really gives a shit about Assault Intercessors in a Salamander's army. No one really gives a shit about that. If you put Assault Intercessors into a Blood Angels army, they're suddenly unbelievably overpowered. They're amazingly point efficient. Because they just rip and tear the shit out of everything. Okay, but how do you fix that? Because you can't put the points up for Assault Intercessors. If you put the points up for Assault Intercessors, yes, you're fixing it because Blood Angels are abusing them. But then but Blood Angels are a small minority. So what you're doing is you're fixing a problem for the minority, but you're fucking the majority. So, again, this is the problem of factions not being fleshed out enough. Is causing them to be both overpowered and underpowered. It's a bit of a dichotomy. It's like a paradox, right? But it's because you've got to take things on a case-by-case basis. And unfortunately, you have to do something which the internet doesn't like, which is you have to have nuance. So, the way you fix this is, like I said, either you bring everything into one place, or you have supplements which are fully fleshed out. But the answer is you need to start... the answer is you need to have distinct lists of points for every single faction. Okay, so, which is kind of what we have, but as with so many things with 40k 10th edition, it's half-baked. It's like 50% fucking done. Okay, so you have every single faction does have so things like Death Guard and Thousand Suns are separate factions which have comprehensive lists of what they can take, and they're only allowed to take those things. And as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can't really dip into Codex Chaos Space Marines. If you're a Thousand Suns player, you can't take Legionnaires. Legionaries, whatever you want to call it. You can take rubrics if you want power armor. If you're a Death Guard player, you can't take Legionnaires. You can take Plague Marines. So these are examples of factions which are distinct, have their own distinct points list, and this is why these factions struggle so much. Not struggle so much, but factions like Thousands struggle so much because they've got a distinct list of points, but they can't dip into another codex to bulk themselves out. And then you have the same problem with Blood Angels, where it's like, because, like I said, they've got a distinct list of points, but then they can go and abuse this expanded roster by dipping into Codex Chaos Space Marines. What GW needs to realistically do is have Codex Chaos Space Marines, and then have Codex Blood Angels, and then have the points for that, and then the points for Codex Blood Angels, and every single thing for Codex Space Marines is also in that points, so they can tweak them. So basically, you have a points value for Vanguard veterans in Codex Space Marines. I say Vanguard veterans again. Assault Intercessors in Codex Space Marines, and they're 75 points. And then you have a separate point entry in the Blood Angels part of the Munitorum Field Manual, or in the fucking Codex, in their area, in their clubhouse. And you've got Assault Intercessors 100 points. That's a figure I'm pulling out my ass, by the way. I don't know if that's a good figure. Maybe 85 points, maybe 95 points. But you get the point. And then maybe because Blood Angels don't benefit from shooter units like as much, like Ironstorm Spearhead, for example. Well, then maybe the Predators of Blood Angels cost 10 points less, and you have to put that level of effort into it. But that's so much more. So much more points, it's so much more effort, so many more things to be updated. It's a little tricky. But I think that's how it has to be. Otherwise, you end up with this fuck system. I mean, you end up with this fuck system. Otherwise, where factions that do not benefit from certain units are getting shafted by points increases because these sub factions do benefit from it, but there's not a separate line on the accounts. Yeah. So I don't really mind. So a lot of people say they don't want that GW will never consolidate it together. I don't care if they split it out. But if you're going to split it out, you have to split it out properly. You can't half split it out and then say refer to this other book. You can't do that. Not without having a distinct list of points. In my opinion, though, I think it's not one or the other. If I was to give my hot take, I think you do a mixture. So you have every army with their codex, with a full fleshed out roster, no picking and choosing, no barring, full fleshed out roster, but then you can also combine factions together. So a great example of this would be, let's get all the Marine armies and put them into one book. Put them all into one book. And then you, if you don't want to have like Blood Angels and Dark Angels and everything, set into a distinctive sort of way, you have the generic names like Vanguard, Spearhead, First Company, all this kind of stuff. But you, as they've done it in the Space Marine Codex to represent things like salamanders and stuff, you basically have a few more that represent. You have one extra detachment for each. The Blood Angels detachment, but you don't have the new Blood Angels that way, but it's the Blood Angels detachment. That makes sense. So you just have an extra detachment. It doesn't really make sense that Blood Angels get 3 separate detachments. Salamanders get 1. Blood Angels should just be an extra detachment in the Marine Codex, really. Or when they get their own codex, it should be fully fleshed out, but maybe just one detachment. Something. Maybe that's too crazy. I don't know, or they have all the attachments in there. Like I said, I think the best thing is you do both. You combine everything together. You have a detachment, and then for each detachment you have a points cost. That's one way of doing it for the units. It also would work for factions like Sisters of Battle, Grey Knights, and in Deathwatch. I mean, bring all the Inquisition shit together. Bring all of it together. Suddenly you have got Grey Knights, which have got access to. You don't have to be clear. You don't have to combine all of the Inquisition shit together if you don't want to. That could be too much. Maybe those factions have been separate for a long time. I don't know. But you could. You could have things like Inquisitorial Stormtroopers and stuff like that to help flesh these things. But again, I honestly think the best thing you do is you consolidate, and then you have a separate points costs. You're not necessarily consolidating things together and then merging them all together. You're just having one, one book, and then you're having things distinctly laid out in there. It's a little, like I said, it's a little bit of nuance to it, and I'm not 100% explaining it. I'm just sort of going through it quickly. But I don't think because you get merged into a book, you have to lose your flavor. I think Blood Angels could merge into a book. All the Marine chapters could merge together, and then inside that book they get their own special place. But it's one book with separate points costs. And if you're going to split it out, then you have to flesh out the codex properly. Is basically what I'm saying. But right now, we've got factions which are split out. Like I said, split out, which aren't being given. You've got two factions which are being split out and not being given the same treatment. You've got factions which get split out and can dip into an extra pool. You've got factions which are being split out and can't dip into an extra pool. And you just can't do that. Fundamentally, long story short, you just can't do that. And interestingly, if you twist my arm about this, then truthfully, I think it's worse. But I think it's more broken and fucks the game more when you split out and then allow a faction to dip back in. Because basically what you've got there is allies. And this has been proven so many times over so many editions. You cannot have allies in a game and have the game remain balanced. That's basically what's happening here. Blood Angels get to ally in Space Marines. Thousand Suns don't get to ally in Chaos Space Marines. Thousand Suns kind of fucked at the moment. But at least only Thousand Suns are fucked by their changes. Blood Angels are fucking not only themselves, but they're also fucking up all the other Space Marine factions at the same time. Yeah, no allies. Thousand Suns, fully fleshing them out. Legionnaires, if cultists can be taken in every single fucking Marine Chaos Space Marine book, then so should Legionnaires or Legionaries. So should Chosen. All of that shit. All of that shit should be the same. You can do it with Predators and stuff. But yeah, everything. That's the way you do it. You're never going to balance it 100%, but people should be treated fairly. Much more fairly than they are now. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.